I don't want to look at another historical romance for the next like at least 2 months. So in preparation for the second season of Bridgerton, I decided to read all 8 or 9 Bridgerton books in a row. I really enjoyed Bridgerton when the first season came out. I think I watched the entire season at least twice all the way through. And ever since then, I've been super excited for the next season, but it just never really crossed my mind that I should probably read the books. And then when I realized that the second season was gonna come out literally on my birthday, I decided, okay, I have enough time that I can start reading these books right now and I will be finished with them by the time the second season comes out. However, I could not have known that I would finish them within a week and a half. I also decided to read the series semi out of order. I started with the second book because I figured I don't really want to read the first book. I already know what happens with Daphne. I know that it's different from the book, you know. There's going to be a lot of differences within the adaptation, but I personally am not a super big fan of Daphne, and I didn't really want to go through her entire story again. So I was like, you know what? We're gonna cheat. We're gonna not read the first book and we're just gonna jump right into the second book. And I was actually really glad that I did because I ended up loving the second book. But here's the order that I decided to go in. I went with The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is the second book, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is the fourth book, To Sir Philip with Love, which is the fifth book, An Offer from a Gentleman, which is the third book, When He Was Wicked, which was the sixth book, It's in His Kiss, which is the seventh book, and then On the Way to the Wedding, which is the eighth book, and then in turn I ended up reading Happily Ever After, which is the collection of all of the bonus epilogues. And so because of the audiobooks I was reading, they included the bonus epilogues anyway, so I was like, well, I'm done with the series, that means I'm done with the epilogues. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I went completely out of order. It wasn't really until I got to the last 3 books that I read them in order, but before that, I was just going all over the place. I really wanted to prioritize like my favorite characters, and I had heard some really great things about Anthony's book, and because specifically the second season is going to be focusing on Anthony and Kate, I decided, okay, let's start off with this book. It makes the most sense, and if I finish it and don't end up reading any of the other books, at least I read The Viscount Who Loved Me and I will understand what's going on in the second season. But once I was through with that, I kind of realized that I was loving this series and I was a little obsessed, and I was like, okay, I guess I have to read the rest of the series, and I'm just going to go through it and pick out my favorite characters and use that to decide which book I was going to read next. So that's low-key why I kind of decided to read Colin's book after The Viscount Who Loved Me, because I really like Colin. I think he's probably in like my top 3 favorite characters from the Bridgerton series. I think we should probably talk about that first. Like, who are my favorite characters? Colin Bridgerton, obviously. He's just, I love him so much. He's always constantly eating, and I love that for him. And he's just very funny. He plays a lot of pranks. He's like very playful. And then I think my other favorite character, I can't really go in order because it's really hard for me to choose favorites, but another favorite is definitely Penelope, which I think is why I ended up liking Romancing Mr. Bridgerton so much, is because it really focuses on Colin and Penelope, and I just love Penelope. I didn't realize how much I enjoyed her character until I started reading these books, and I was like, wait, I really like her. I love that she's like really close with all of the Bridgertons. She's like practically part of the family. She's really close friends with Eloise, and Eloise is another one of my favorite characters. I love her so much. I think that she was done kind of dirty in this book series. Like, she had so much promise with like how different she was compared to her sisters, and there could have been so much done with her character that wasn't done, and then her book ended up being just like kind of a disaster. Some honorable mention characters that I really enjoyed were Anthony, Kate, Hyacinth, and I think that's about it, because some of the other characters, especially towards the end of the series, I just kind of was like, I wasn't connecting with them, at least not in the way that I was connecting with the earlier characters. I really liked all of those like main core cast of characters, and then the other ones that we didn't really get to focus on a lot in the earlier books, I just hadn't like connected with them in the way that I wanted to. So they just started to fall to the wayside, kind of forgettable, didn't really care. Okay, so I really want to rank all of these books in order from favorite to least favorite because I have some thoughts. I think it's pretty obvious that my favorite book of the series is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, and this is Colin and Penelope's book and also the 4th book in the series, so it's pretty much like smack dab in the middle. But I ended up giving this book the highest rating out of any of the other books, and that's a 3.5 stars. I do have to say I rated these a little low, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think mostly it's some of the problematic elements within these books. They can be a little misogynistic. There's some like offhand racist comments within these books that I don't really like, but overall I did really enjoy them. So I think, you know, giving it a 3 stars was kind of the best of both worlds of being like, I did really enjoy these books, but they also had a lot of issues. And I think for me, even though Romancing Mr. Bridgerton was my favorite book and I love Penelope so much, I think the one thing that I wish would have been done different is that I wish Penelope wouldn't have lost weight. I felt like it didn't really affect her character all that much. It wasn't really necessary, and it just kind of made the plot feel like the only reason that she even had success with romancing Mr. Bridgerton was the fact that she had lost weight. And I think that Julia Quinn did try to handle it delicately. I wouldn't necessarily call this book outright fatphobic, but there definitely was some just underlying fatphobic ideas within these books, even like within the entire series, not even just this one book. And it was kind of hard to escape from that. So the entire time I was reading this book, I was just imagining that Penelope had never lost weight, that she is still, you know, plus size. And I think that definitely made my enjoyment of the book a lot better, but I can't really give that to the book. That's definitely just from my imagination. I'm holding out a lot of hope that within the series, the Netflix series, there isn't going to be like a weight loss plot. So fingers crossed. But yeah, I did really enjoy Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I loved the dynamic between Colin and Penelope. I loved this friends to lovers situation. I think it was done really well because it was more of, it wasn't necessarily childhood friends to lovers, because like it doesn't seem like they were necessarily friends when they were kids, but like it does have that sort of element of like Penelope is basically part of the family. She's just always around. And I think that that's so realistic because like that's just how things happen, and I think that's so cute. Just like the fact that she had been pining for him all this time and then he just kind of realizes, wait, you know. And I think the thing for me is that I liked that he had like gone on all these adventures, he'd gone traveling and all this stuff, and then he comes back and he realizes like everything that he'd ever wanted was like right there, and he just never noticed it, never realized it. And I don't know, I'm a sucker for that. I know some people really don't like that kind of plot, but I am such a sucker for it. I love that kind of realization of like, how did I miss this? How did I not realize that everything I ever wanted was just right here? I've been like searching all over for this, and it's right here. My second favorite was definitely The Viscount Who Loved Me, and that is Anthony and Kate's book, and that's what the second season is going to be centered around. I think this book in particular definitely had the most issues with misogyny, and that definitely has to do with Anthony as a character. Also, I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce his name as Antony or Anthony, because it's spelled as Anthony, but they pronounce it as Antony. I just don't know if that's like a British thing, like an accent thing, or if it's just that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. So I'm so sorry if you're like super annoyed that I'm calling him Anthony. That's just how it appears in my mind. I think the thing that I loved the most about this book, despite all of like the misogyny, just like it was a lot, but the thing I loved the most about this book was the relationship between Kate and her sister Edwina. I love a family dynamic, and I think that's what drew me to this series in the first place, is that it follows this huge family of Bridgertons, and like each book is going to follow a family member. And then you have The Viscount Who Loved Me, and this like just entirely deals with family because you have Kate and Edwina and they're sisters and they're super close, and Kate is very protective of Edwina, and it's just so sweet. I love their dynamic. And I really love the Taming of the Shrew plot that was taking place within this book. I don't feel like it's talked about a lot, but it was definitely big Taming of the Shrew, 10 Things I Hate About You vibes, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was super fun. I feel like that plot line really works for me, especially in historical romance. I love just like this very outspoken, very headstrong, and very stubborn woman kind of going up against her match of like, he's also kind of like arrogant and stubborn and they really butt heads a lot, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And this is where like the Pall Mall scene really comes into play, and I'm just like obsessed with all of the Pall Mall scenes within these books. They really don't happen a lot towards the end of the series, but definitely in the beginning of the series you really get to see all of the Bridgertons interact and see how competitive they are, and I think that that's so much fun, and it's so like realistic for a family. I mean, like, who isn't competitive with their family? So yeah, I really loved The Viscount Who Loved Me. That one was definitely a great way to start off the series for me. I think my third favorite was surprisingly An Offer from a Gentleman, and this is the Cinderella retelling within the series, and this one follows Benedict, but I actually didn't like the book because of Benedict. I actually ended up liking it because of Sophie, and that's like his love interest within this book, and she's sort of the Cinderella character. I loved the ending of this book. I thought it was so perfect. It was just like I don't know, it was just like the ending really did it for me. I think my main issue with this book, besides some of like the problematic elements, was that Benedict didn't really feel like his own character, if that makes sense. I think I said this in my review, but he felt like kind of an Anthony 2.0 or like an Anthony light. So Benedict kind of like dissolved into the background for me. I kind of forgot about him, but oh my gosh, did I love Sophie. She was like the perfect Cinderella character. She just embodied everything that you would think of as a Cinderella character in the best way possible, and I loved this book. I don't know what it is about Cinderella retellings. I just love them so much. I'm such a sucker for them, and this one was definitely no different. Also, this is the book that like solidified my love for Mama Bridgerton. She is just so fantastic, and just everything that I could ask for in a mother in like this kind of series. I think that the Netflix show kind of doesn't really do her justice, so I'm hoping that she's a little bit better in the second season, because she is just such a fantastic mother. Like, I am blown away every time that she's on the page. I love her so much. I want her to be my mom. I want to be a Bridgerton. And I just think that she's so sweet, and she clearly just like loves all of her children so much. Is so willing to just do like literally anything for them. She is up for anything. She is just like going to like put 100% of herself into her children, and I think that's so great. She's just such a fantastic character, and it's not even like that she just revolves around her children. It's like she has her own personality, and I feel like you don't really get that from parents, especially in like these historical fiction books, and especially like a really great parent. Like, I feel like so often the parents are either A, really shitty, or B, very distant. But with Mama Bridgerton, we just like get this amazing mother figure, and she's awesome, and I kind of wish that we had our own book about her. Like, I wish we had a Violet book. So after this is where my ranking gets a little tricky, because I feel like I know my 3 favorite books from the series. It's obviously Colin, Anthony, and Benedict, but then after that I'm just kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit more difficult. I know my least favorite book, that's easy. The rest of it is difficult. I think I'm going to have to say that my 4th favorite Bridgerton book is It's in His Kiss, and that is the book that follows Hyacinth and her little romance, and I thought that one was really fun and really sweet. I did actually really like her love interest, Gareth, but they have very difficult names to pronounce. I don't think my lisp is that bad anymore, but trying to say Hyacinth and Gareth, it's above my pay grade. I feel like this one could have been higher up for me, but the ending of this book felt so lackluster that it really almost ruined a lot of the book for me. I did really like the majority of like the first third, maybe first 2/3 of this book. And that was mainly because we got so much Lady Danbury content in this book. I love her so much. She is so funny. I could just like read about like Lady Danbury and all of her quips like all day long. I think that she's so funny, one of my favorite characters of the series. I don't know why I didn't mention her when I was talking about my favorite characters earlier, but oh my gosh, she is so funny. And this book was just like Lady Danbury content all over the place. And I think going back to how I felt like the ending was a little lackluster, part of it was mainly because it didn't feel like a resolution at the end, and I felt like the epilogues were kind of wasted on resolving the actual plot instead of resolving it in the main story. And I typically like the epilogues in the Bridgerton books to kind of be like non-plot centric and a little bit more fluffy, a little bit more fun. Don't really have to worry about trying to tie up the plot because you've already tied up the plot in the main story. You can just use the epilogues for fun stuff. So yeah, that was like my main issue with that book, but it's not a huge issue. It's still like my 4th favorite book of the series. I thought it was fun. I think it also could kind of be interchangeable with Benedict's book, so Hyacinth and Benedict can kind of have like a joint 3rd place, but yeah, they're kind of on the same level for me. I feel like the next book in this ranking would definitely be On the Way to the Wedding, and that is Gregory's book. This one I have some thoughts about because it follows Gregory, obviously, but then it also follows these 2 other girls, Hermione and Lucy, and they're like besties, but I think they might be a little bit more than besties. I was like, excuse me, I think these are lesbians. There's definitely something going on between Lucy and Hermione. They're very close. They have a very special relationship, at least it seems like to me. One of my updates for this book was like, those 2 girls are gay, and I truly believe that.
That boy is gay, and I really believe that.
I think it's true. I think it's honestly, truly true. And this is a little difficult for me because I did rate this book 2 stars, and that's actually a lower rating than the next book on this list, but I did think that I actually enjoyed it more than the other books, so I might need to lower the rating. But this book was wild. This book was just like throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks. And I kind of loved it for how messy it was. We did have an openly gay character. Well, not openly, but it was explicitly said that he's gay. So I liked that. That was fun. This was definitely the most queer Bridgerton book out of these series. You know, if we're gonna say like, okay, we have this explicitly stated gay character, and then we have these 2 girls that are obviously gay, but it's just not explicitly stated. Hermione and Lucy, it's clear they're sapphic in some sort of way. That's all I have to say about them. It's true. They're friends, but it's clear that they truly like each other. And then Gregory as a character was so strange to me. He is unhinged in the weirdest way possible. Just, if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. He's so strange. There's something wrong with that boy. I swear to God. I think he also kind of suffers from the Benedict complex of like trying to be Anthony but not quite Anthony. I do think that Gregory's a little bit more interesting than Benedict is, but still there's something wrong with him. The second to last book in this ranking is When He Was Wicked, and this is Francesca's book. This book made me cry a lot. However, I didn't really like it. I think that was the problem for me, is that while this book elicited a lot of emotions for me, at the end of the day, it was mostly forgettable. Like, really the only parts that I do remember from this book are the parts that made me cry, and that was mostly in like the first maybe 10% of the book, and that's where Francesca is with her first husband, and then he inevitably dies, passes away, and that was just like, ugh. That hurt pretty bad. But the rest of the book, I didn't really love it as much as I liked the other books. And it wasn't necessarily because there wasn't like chemistry or whatever between these 2 characters, because I definitely think there was chemistry. However, I just could not get myself into this book. It felt so distant. I didn't really connect with it. In my review, I said that it was very cute, but not a lot of stuff happened in it. I felt like it could have been a novella. I think my favorite part of this book was like the multiple times Colin was like, marry her already. Like to Michael, he was like, you gotta marry her. You clearly are in love with her. Everybody can see it. Marry her. And of course, Colin makes the book better. Okay. So now we're at our very least favorite of the series, and I will say it's my least favorite. It might even be the worst book of the series because I did give it a 1-star rating, which is not something that I do very often. I do not necessarily give out 1-star ratings very often. But this one I feel like deserved it, and that is To Sir Philip with Love, and that is Eloise's book. Oh my gosh, she deserved so much better. Sir Philip was truly the worst. Truly awful. A vile, vile human being. I hate him so much. If he was real, I would punch the shit out of him. He is a horrible husband, a horrible love interest, a horrible father. Just like the worst. I don't understand why Miss Julia Quinn wrote this man and was like, there you go, dust off my hands, he's perfect. What? This man sucks. This man is the worst man. This man makes men everywhere look horrible. And that's like saying something. He was just the worst. I don't even know what to say. And it, like, first of all, trigger warning for rape, for marital rape. What? And we're supposed to root for this man who like raped his wife, his depressed wife, who clearly had postpartum depression. We're supposed to like this man? No, absolutely not. And like the way that he, and not only just him, but it's like the entire book, it might even be Julia Quinn herself, views depression is disgusting. Like they're constantly just like ew about depression. Like they're just like, ugh, she's like such a bummer to be around. Really? She's a bummer to be around? She's got postpartum depression, clear, and they're like, well, she was like kind of sad her entire life. Like she just like, I never saw her smile or laugh. It's like, I'm done. I'm done with you. This entire book sucks. I mean, the main problem is Sir Philip. He is just the worst. Even just the treatment of depression was just horrific. It was so stigmatizing. I was like, are you kidding me? That's how you write about depression? Postpartum depression at that? Whoa, like that was just not okay to me. And then the way that he treated his children, like they were basically strangers, like he never wanted to be around them. I don't think that this is a video for a spanking discussion, but personally, I don't like spanking. It's bad. I don't like it. And Sir Philip did it quite a lot, and he was just very like domineering towards his children. And like his whole thing was like, oh, I don't want my children to be afraid of me, and like I was afraid of my father, I don't want my children to be afraid of me. But then he was just like, did everything he possibly could to make them afraid of him. And it's like, where's the disconnect? Like, what are you not getting? Like, oh. I hated him so much. I hated him so much. And Eloise deserved so much better. I would have loved to like read a book about her with someone who could like match her intellect, match her amount of like care and love that she has. It's like this entire book, she's like putting in all of her effort for him and like really trying to engage with him, really trying to talk with him. She's so curious. She like asks him so many questions, tries to get him to come out of his shell, and he is just like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, this is the man that Eloise deserves? If we're gonna put her with a man, at least put her with a man that actually like gives a fuck. I said in my review that the only redeeming quality of this book is the fact that the 4 Bridgerton brothers come to Sir Philip's house and beat the shit out of him. That was the best part. I was like, yeah, go! Beat the shit out of him. I was so pumped for that part. I was like, yes, Anthony, Colin, Benedict, even little Gregory was there. We love that for them. And that should have been the end of the book. She should have just left, gone back, never even looked back, never returned, and she could have found somebody else and lived happily ever after. So we hate Sir Philip in this house. He sucks. I really hope that if we get past a season 2 for the Netflix Bridgerton series, that she doesn't end up with Sir Philip. I know that he's already been introduced in the series because he goes and marries Marina, but I really hope that we just kind of forget about him and like he never comes back. Or if we are going to have him be a part of this series, I really hope that they just like completely rewrite his character, because oh my god, he was awful. He was truly a vile character. So yeah, that's my entire ranking of the Bridgerton books. I had quite a lot to say about the last book that I talked about, obviously, because it's my least favorite book. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. It was awful. One day, me and Julia Quinn are going to fight, whether it be here or in hell. But overall, I did really enjoy my experience getting to read all of the Bridgerton books. It was so much fun. I don't think I've ever had that much fun reading a book series in a long time, at least. If you are thinking of reading the series, I 100% say go for it. Definitely some like content warning, trigger warnings for misogyny, racism, rape in To Sir Philip with Love. Just some like overall problematic elements, death, infertility, stuff like that. If that's like a trigger for you, maybe stay away from these books. But for the most part, I think it's a really fun series. Definitely a guilty pleasure of mine. I am fully okay with using the term guilty pleasure, especially for this series. I even called Anthony Bridgerton a guilty pleasure of mine because he is kind of like really misogynistic, but we still love him. I still love him, at least. So I cannot wait to talk about Bridgerton with y'all in the comments. Let me know down below some of your favorite characters, what your favorite book was, if you've read any of the books at all, or maybe if you're planning on reading the books. I cannot wait to have all these conversations with you all. I have been like burning to talk about this series, so I'm so glad I was finally able to make this video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, TikTok, and Storygraph. All the links are going to be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.